when those things are flying through your mind, those are squirrels, right? That's the distraction. And then you lose that presence.
Those are squirrels? Is that what you said?
Yeah. I chase a lot of them too. But
learn more about the art and science of account management. Pick up a copy of A Dragon Walks into a Meeting, a tactical guide to client management. Digital and print editions available at Amazon or your favorite bookseller.
welcome back, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Account Management, a tactical guide for success. You got Fred Fuller here on the other side of the table. My compadre, Mr. John Brown. John, how the heck are you, man?
I am awesome. How are you, sir?
I am doing well. I'm doing very well. I am glad to be home. I've been on the road a whole bunch, and probably the single biggest reason it's been a while since you and I have spoken.
Yeah, that's right. Did you check your bag while you were traveling?
Look at that tie-in. I did not check my bag. And I did do international travel. I was gone for a week and I shoved it all in the one bag.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting. So that's a wonderful tie-in. So last time we spoke of business travel.
Right.
In John's mantra of never, ever, ever check a bag, which I actually wish I would have opened that up for debate on LinkedIn, and I might still do it.
Yeah.
Because I think there's probably a lot of people out there like, that's crazy. And I would love to hear kind of the different opinions and stuff. But
of all the things we've ever talked about, it's I get the most reactions about that, which is really hilarious. Like nothing about client service or anything, but like the checking the bag. I want to talk about that with you. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to dig in on this one. Right.
Yeah. Usually and there are a lot of times people have a horror story about I checked the bag and then I didn't have clothes for 3 days, or they argue with me, about that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's never a debate on some sort of a moral centric thing like honesty or transparency. It's about checking the bag.
Right.
That's awesome. Well, look, this is a great segue. So it's been a while and we've been traveling. So we got to eat some of our own dog food, whatever. I don't know. Why do they say that? Why do they say that, John?
No, that's a weird expression. Like who eats dog food?
Yeah. And who makes their own?
You're right. I'm in the kitchen. It's hard enough making my own dinner. Like, why am I making one for an animal? That doesn't make any sense.
I can't. Yeah. Anyway, we got to.
So why haven't we gotten together and talked in so long?
Yeah, no, it is travel insanity. It's funny, I haven't traveled in 18 months or whatever it is. And I'm not one of these guys that considers myself a road warrior, though I do know my way around the Atlanta airport. Right. Mm-hmm. But I haven't traveled in forever. And then all of a sudden, man, something happened and I found myself traveling for literally nonstop for roughly 3 weeks, which was kind of cool and fun to get back into. But it was also exhausting because I hadn't done that in a while. So it's been difficult for us to find time to do this. What have you been up to, man?
Well, I'm surprised to hear all that. I was assuming it's because you're so lazy.
Well, yeah. When I say travel, I mean to the post office.
I'm sorry. Was that out loud? No, I meant to be my inside. No, actually, the honest answer to your question is probably because I'm so lazy. Maybe that's really the problem here. I'm the problem. Maybe the world is getting busier with COVID receding, hopefully a little bit. And so, I'm super busy as well, but in a very healthy way and really enjoying work. So doing all that, did a little traveling. I've done a little traveling myself, took a vacation and some things like that. So we're all just busy people, but you're never too busy to talk about the important topic at hand, which is, of course, account management.
Well, I love the reverence in your voice. You went down. You were like a big dramatic pause. This is awesome. This is
pause.
So awesome. We're the worst. Oh my gosh, drama around account management.
It's let's pair of hams.
Oh my gosh, please, folks, somebody save this thing. So in an effort to do that very thing. So last time we spoke, we were talking about travel and so forth and never check the bag and all that good stuff. And of course, the reason you would travel is to go and attend a
Meeting.
Meeting. Good answer. Gold star, John. So yes. So meeting. So if we know how to get there, which is half the battle or whatever they say, then the big thing becomes the meeting. And so it'd probably be good for us to spend a little bit of time talking about meetings and agendas. How do you prepare for the meeting? How do you prep yourself for the meeting? And as always, we boiled it down to a handful of points here to discuss and explore. So, Mr. John Brown, would you like to walk us through those points?
Yes, it's 6 points. And I should also mention that we talked about travel. We're going to talk about meetings in this podcast. And then the next one we're going to talk about probably will be our favorite of all these, which is the art of client entertainment. So that might have to be a two-parter because we'll have to have war stories and many, many things to go with it. But there's 6 things that about a meeting that you need to think about. And we've talked about a few of these obliquely before, but it never hurts to repeat. The first is prepare. The second is prepare something even when the client doesn't ask you not to prepare anything. So it's that kind of preparation. The third is assume the technology will not work. The fourth is have presence. We're going to talk about what that means. The fifth is a little bit of a subtopic, but relevant in today's world, video conferencing, act like you are in the same room when you are video conferencing. And then finally, number 6, what to do after the meeting.
Maybe it speaks to how old I am. I don't know. But as we go through this list, I'm like, yep, story there, story there, story there. And many of them are not flattering. Many of them are like, yep, I remember when I learned that lesson. I remember. So this should be a good list. Keep it between the rails.
I think every single one of these, as a matter of fact, as I think about the book that we wrote in this podcast, pretty much every single one is a story of where it is from, where it went wrong, and then a lesson learned, and then you and I wrote it down as, okay, don't do that, right?
Yeah,
I think that's actually where all of this comes from, pain.
Yeah, the list should be like probably 30 items. We just haven't learned the other 24 yet.
Yeah,
we just haven't stumbled into those. So, but this is cool, man. I love this. So prepare. That's number 1, prepare, which is like, yeah, okay, I get it. Prepare. Everybody said that. My grandma said that, and I get blah, blah, blah. But like, what's the secret sauce here, John?
Yeah. So we talked about QBRs before and how to do that. So this is a little bit of a tangent of that. But, so even if it's not a QBR, and it's just a regular client meeting, there's a few things about preparation that I think tend to get overlooked. The first is just the plain and simple idea of sending the agenda ahead of time. You'd be shocked how often client managers don't do that. And also often clients don't ask for it. And even if it's 2 sentences of it's a 30-minute meeting, in the first 15 minutes, we're going to talk about X, and in the second 15 minutes, we're going to talk about Y. In an email, like that can be fine for a very, brief video conference meeting. But always send some kind of agenda ahead of time. And obviously something more formal and elaborate if, it's a bigger meeting, more people, so on and so forth. Similarly, logistically, make sure to populate, if it's a little bit more elaborate meeting, a larger audience and so forth, actually putting in the calendar invite all of the relevant materials that anybody might need in the meeting. So all of the logistics. So where's the meeting going to be located? How is it, the physicality of it, the address, any materials for the meeting, any instructions for the video conference, various technologies have that in there. And that's important to have it all in one centralized place. And generally in the meeting invite is probably the best place to do it. Although you can do it in an email. You can do it in a carrier pigeon, it doesn't matter, but having all that in one place is important. Then finally, prepare these things, whatever materials you're going to use, even if you're just going to draw something on a whiteboard, know what you're going to do with that ahead of time, so it doesn't have to be necessarily a PowerPoint, all of that tends to be the weapon of choice. But even if it's an Excel or anything like that, prepare it early. Don't do it on the plane or on the way to the client, right? And I know that sounds silly, but again, like you mentioned a minute ago, these are all hard lessons learned. I have myself done, and have seen other account managers do, and they're all a big mistake. You absolutely do not want to be preparing anything on a plane as you're going out there. You need that time to rest, gather your thoughts, get in the zone for the meeting. not be trying to stitch together some slides.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I would add to this. They're always like sub bullets, right, or whatever. Which is when you talk about the agenda ahead of time and the calendar invite and the logistics. What's buried in there that doesn't get said often is align on attendees. Mm-hmm. Like if you go rolling into that meeting and you got your boss and your boss's boss and your boss's boss's boss, and you flew all the way across the country and you walk in and you're looking at the, like they don't feel like their counterparts are in the room. That's bad. That's not a good look. Right. And the same thing on their side. Right. But it's not just about the levels. It's also about the conversation. If you bring me into a meeting and sit me down with 2 or 3 engineers and they want to talk about something to the third decimal place, like, man, I'm not going to be much help there. Right. But if they bring your engineers and they can have you could probably solve a lot of problems and move a lot of things and make a lot of progress. But aligning on invitees, and it's a very simple ask. And 90% of the time when you ask your counterpart, they are glad you did.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think along with that point is I want, as an executive, I want all these things nailed down like a couple days ahead of time. Like I don't want to be like the night before, finding out from the account manager, oh yeah, we had to think about inviting this person. Like that's not a good look. I want to know that you've thought it through at least a couple days ahead of time, if not longer. You've got all the materials prepared a couple days ahead of time, if not longer ahead of the meeting. Like I want it done in advance because it's not only healthy for the account manager to have all those things done, but like if you're bringing along any executives or anybody like that to the meeting, like they're going to kind of expect that you've got your act together. Yeah. And attendees being absolutely huge part of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And these conversations become very circular, right? Because when we talk about, what goes into a QBR, we talk about, what is it that you want the executive to do in the meeting? Right. We talked about that before. Like this is what we're talking about. This is where that stuff comes together of like, you're going to have an executive in the meeting. They're going to have an executive in the meeting. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to kind of talk about these things and lean into this a little bit for me. Okay, cool. Right. They love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And going along with that. And I think you've got a great story about this, which you might have told before, but it's relevant here is, this kind of preparation we're talking about and having an agenda and having all your materials, you have all these things ready to go and you have something to talk about even in the meeting, especially if the client tells you don't prepare anything, right? That's the second point. Like prepare something, even if they say don't, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm smiling and laughing because I have a great story about this. I probably have shared it before, but it's worth it again, which is, and I'll be super brief. Massive client calls me and says, can you come up? We're going to talk about a few things. Me and a couple other people can, super casual, come on up, buddy. And we had a pretty good relationship. And I was like, yeah, okay, cool. And
that's when they call you buddy. That's when you know.
Yeah, sure. So I'm like, I'm going to hop in the car and do my thing. And I tell my boss what's going on. And I said, hey, I'm going to go do the thing. And my boss says, that feels a little bit weird to me. What are they going to talk about? And I said, I asked him and he wasn't terribly specific, but he said, come on, no, easy peasy, no sweat. And I'm like, okay. And my boss continues to get uneasy about this. He says, let's do this. Let's prepare a few things, da, 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 da. And I said, okay, and I'm like, man, you're kind of overthinking this, but it's cool. It puts you in a comfortable place and that's important. So we'll do that. So we put together the presentation and so forth. And then at the last minute, my boss says, you know what, man, I'm going with you. And I've always been pretty easy on this kind of stuff. Like, it wasn't like, hey, what's your problem? Blah, blah, blah. But I didn't think it was necessary. And I was like, all right, man, well, hop in the car. That's cool. Right. Get you a coffee and, the rules, don't spill anything on the seats. And we go to the client though. We go to the client and we walk in there. And the client grabbed me. So we go to the client first thing in the morning. The meeting's at 9:00. We leave and then, Charlotte, whatever, is 4 hours. And so we're up before the rooster. And we walk in there about 30 minutes early, and my contact grabs me and pulls me into the room and goes, "Hey man, I had no idea this was coming, but there's like 70 people in there from sourcing, and they're getting ready to just kind of, go up one side and down the other. Mm-hmm. And this is all the warning I could give you." And I was like, holy smokes. And my boss is standing right there looking at me like, "You moron, you moron." Yeah. And so we went in, and thankfully we did have something prepared, because I could talk about this for probably an hour or two. What we were doing was very nuanced in terms of the relationship between money and cost and revenue and how everything flows. And so sourcing kind of came in to do like the quarterly inspection or whatever, not realizing exactly who we were and what we did and how we did it. And so having some materials prepared actually gave me the opportunity to go, well, that's interesting. Let me show you exactly what our performance is and how this relationship works. And within 15 minutes, I got everybody to sort of kind of relax and take a deep breath and so forth. So had I not had those materials, though, it would have been far, far, far more difficult for me to convey that with just the spoken word. So yes, always have something prepared, always have something that speaks to who you are and what you do and how you do it, because you can find yourself in a room full of folks that don't understand that. And there's no better way to help communicate it than with some slides and a little presentation.
That's a great story. And I'll tell you, like a lot of times for meetings that, as an account manager, if I'm going into a client and I know somebody is going to be in the room who's cold, in other words, they've not been involved in the relationship before, I'll tend to bring with me just a standard sales deck of here's what we do, right? Because like, you think you're coming in to talk about topic X in the meeting, and then all of a sudden that person hijacks the meeting and goes, "Wait a minute, what all's going on here?" And then you're off in La La Land, and you don't have any kind of something to help you set context with them about okay, let's back up and talk about the basics of what we do. So I kind of always have that at the ready, just in case somebody like that shows up, and then I can maybe selectively pick a few slides and okay, let's talk about these things. So you're mentioning something really important. Like, don't get lulled in any false sense of security that, hey, we're gonna have a meeting and wrap.
Yeah. And it happens. It happens quickly and easily. And it's a byproduct of building some of that trust and having some of those relationships. But you always have to remember that there's some frame around that, regardless of how long and who and what and where and all that. But so you're now prepared, and you're prepared even if they didn't ask you to prepare. And then you walk in, you plug in the laptop, you're going to show them how awesome you are, and the lights flicker.
So assume the technology will not work. I got a story about this. So I did a client meeting where we're going to meet with the client. It's a room full of people, and we're going to do a WebEx, which, at the time was kind of the most popular sort of sharing platform. And then, we were doing a sales pitch, right, for a potential client. And so I was kind of along for the ride as sort of the, operations account management lead. And so we get in the room to do the pitch. And so, of course, in the room, we're in the basement of this building, and there's no Wi-Fi signal. So the WebEx doesn't work. Okay, so now we got to figure out some other way to get the document to all the people who aren't in the room. So the salesperson takes the slides and tries to email them to everybody who's not in the room, which doesn't work because we're not on a Wi-Fi.
Can I just say something real quick?
Yeah.
If you have gone down to the sales guy being the guy that solves a technical problem, you are in.
Yeah, you're already toast. Right.
You're so done.
Then we were toast, and then so we're trying to email it, which of course doesn't work because there's no Wi-Fi. So then what happens is we get a memory. I'm going to tell all the details. Okay, we get a memory stick from our sponsor there to put the presentation on, and then she's going to email it out to everyone. But then it turns out she can't do it because the file size is too large. Most companies, like a lot of companies, have like a 10 or 20 megabyte file size limitation. So then we have to convert it into a PDF. Okay. All right. I could keep going, but you get all this. And then kidding, I think it's like 40 minutes into the meeting, finally we get everything going. By that time, our sponsor, person who like is really interested in doing the project, she's got to go on to another meeting, so she misses the rest of the thing. Anyway, the coup de grace was we get out in the parking lot, and the salesperson says to me, "Hey, I think that went pretty well."
I love it. I absolutely love it. Yeah, that was
solid.
Right. Yes.
So anyway, we don't even have to almost go through the points to talk about what this means, but what it means is have a plan A and a plan B, and for an in-person meeting, have a plan C. And a lot of times plan C for me, I mean, I'm going to go old school here, but as an account manager, you need to think about at this level, don't be afraid of just bringing paper copies of whatever it is you're going to present if you have to, right? Like, think about what if things terrifically go wrong. And a lot of the terrifically going wrong stuff is around if you're projecting something at a client, like whatever their projector setup is. I mean, you are rolling the dice if you are using their stuff and you haven't vetted it out ahead of time with either like an admin who works there or physically gone over to the client yourself to make sure everything is working. So like when I say start thinking about plan C, I'm serious.
Look, it bites me all the time. Yeah. And now it's amplified. For me, this is far worse than it used to be, because it used to be going to a client and mastering then some one piece of technology with them. And usually you at least had some people in the room. And so if something failed, you could email it. Like now everything is on video conference. Mm-hmm. And I see people that I know are very technically sophisticated get on and it doesn't want to cooperate.
Yeah.
Right. So I always have like going into a meeting. Okay. Who is projecting? Who's going to do the screen share? Who's going to take the notes? Because it's hard to share your screen and take the notes. Right. If that screen share doesn't work, then who next? Right. But talk through these things. I do it all the time and still can't do it enough. And it still, it still comes up and bites me more than I'd like. Right.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, here's something to think about. Like, even if you've used a piece of video conferencing software technology like a million times before, trust me, it might not work. And I will tell you, no kidding, this happened to me yesterday. Right. So we start using Zoom for video conferences in a conference room. We've used it a million times before for a million Zoom meetings, and the sound doesn't work. Right. So we were able to adjust relatively quickly, but we had, a solid 5 minutes at the beginning of the meeting of like kind of flailing around trying to figure out. And it's kind of just a mood killer for getting things kicked off in the right way on the client. So why this is so important is that, like, if you get it wrong, it starts the meeting off in not a great way. And that's not where you want to start. And like I said, if you've used it a million times before, trust me, it won't work the one time you need it to.
Yeah, no, that it's going to happen. And I think what one of the takeaways for this for me personally is do everything you can to avoid it. So make sure you're prepared, to your point, right? Have an A and a B and a C. There's an element here too of if and when it just doesn't work, how do you handle that, right? Like remember to be graceful. Remember to not get frustrated and look at the person who was supposed to plan this and bark at them.
Yeah.
Right. How do you handle it when it really does actually go in the ditch? And there's something there, right? There is this executive presence and sophistication and so forth. Like if you want to have some difficult conversations about it because it was something avoidable, save that for after the meeting. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like some different things there. And when you think about all that, that really comes to like, how do you participate? How do you best participate in the meeting? One of the things that people say is that, like have presence, right? Like, you need to have a presence in that meeting.
Yeah, that's a great segue to our next point. Like having that presence, right? So like if something goes wrong, like you want to have that executive presence where you're not giving people a hard time about it. But, really what we mean by presence is being present in the meeting. So that means even if you are an account manager, you're maybe facilitating a meeting between two technical teams or two operational teams or two teams that aren't you, which happens a lot as an account manager, right? You're bringing your organization to bear against a problem. You don't want to kind of run it like, oh, I'm making introductions for everybody, and then I'm just going to hang back and let them do their thing, right? No, you're still in charge of the meeting unless it's clear that you're not, right? So unless there's some other executive in the meeting who's clearly more in charge, like you assume you are in charge and you are running the show. And so you need to have presence in that meeting. So that really means, and we've talked about this a bunch of times before, but it's worth reiterating, don't make sure you facilitate the kickoff of the meeting, make sure you facilitate the conclusion of the meeting, use everyone's name at least once, particularly from the client side, make sure they know, you see them as people, so that you can build trust. Do not let others, don't lean back, let others run the show. And most importantly of all, don't play around with your technology, either on your screen or on your phone or whatever it is. Don't do that. No whoobies.
Oh my goodness. Wow. I'm glad you brought that up. Holy smokes. The death mistake is the screen share. Let me go over here and check email real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot I'm sharing the screen. Holy smokes. No bueno. No bueno.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
You bring up something really interesting when you talk about having presence and you use the words be in control of the meeting. I think that's a very interesting thing. I think it's critical. I agree with you 100%. I think one of the ways that you can actually have control of the meeting is kind of by surrendering control. And what I mean by that is, one of the things that I love to do in client meetings, I actually learned this from you, John, and I probably take it maybe even a step further now, which is like, hey, client, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah, right.
I've got my agenda here and I can read these slides to you. We can go through it. And I know that things change, and we set this agenda 2 weeks ago. And so like, what is there anything on this agenda or otherwise that is top of mind for you that we should jump into first?
Yeah. I mean, asking for that, and we talked about that a bunch of times before, but asking for that and then doing active listening is you controlling the meeting. There's no question about that. So that's not what it's a great point. That's not what we mean by that. What we mean by that is that you're not kicking it off and then checking out, right? Like you're actively participating, you're actively listening. Like even if they're talking about boring technical stuff that you don't understand, you are still actively listening and are part of the meeting and are working on understanding at least what you can.
Yeah. And then you might have to jump in and go, okay, cool. Obviously, there's a whole bunch more that we need to talk about here. And we kind of do that thing. And so, but let's go ahead and shift our attention back over to this thing here. So you keep it on track about like that's being in control.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. So that's what having presence in the meeting is. And it can mean, and there's some subtle details in there as well. So I think you want to facilitate business cards presentations in the meeting. We've talked about that before. I know it's old fashioned, but again, it's that kind of formality, like you're treating this very seriously. So you give them your business cards, get your team to do the same. Again, I know that's kind of old school, but it's showing that you've been thoughtful about the meeting. One other way I'll throw out there to show that you're present and have presence and be thoughtful about the meeting. And this is can be a little silly, but it's just something to think about. Don't do it every single time. Is to we say bring presents into the meeting, as in tchotchkes to the meeting. So little gifts, right, that you can give out. So if it kind of depends a little bit on your company. Does your company do this? Not every company does it. Is it appropriate for the meeting? Like, would I do this for a CEO? Maybe not. But for a lot of clients, like if you bring them just something small to kick off the meeting, like a t-shirt from your company or, a travel mug or a backpack or something like that. I mean, it can set the right tone in the meeting. So think about bringing presents.
It can be so small.
Yeah.
I had a client historically that loved Chick-fil-A, but I don't know if they just kind of never got to it or what, but whenever I saw her, I brought her like a $20 gift, Chick-fil-A card. Like, hey, here you go. Nothing, right? Like nothing takes nothing to go get it. Takes it, but just a little touch of like, hey, thought about you.
I thought about you. That's right. That's really what you're doing.
Yeah.
I thought a little bit about you before this meeting. I thought, oh, you might enjoy this, right? Like that's a nice touch. It can be a nice touch. Again, I would be careful about, not every meeting, like you're going in to get a whipping.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's actually the best time to do it. Who knows? But, or you're meeting a CEO, or there's probably a lot of situations where that's not appropriate, but can be really nice.
Yeah. Well, it illustrates presence in the relationship. It illustrates presence in that personal relationship and presence in the relationship between the two organizations. That's what it really is.
Yeah.
And then then everything else kind of flows from there. And so, but in this day and age, when we talk about the technology and the presence and so forth. And so now, like, that presence in a room can be a little bit different than that presence on a video conference.
Yeah, that's right.
And so when you think about video conferencing, like, maybe, what are a few tricks there that we should think about as we think about meetings and how to behave and so forth?
Yeah. So that's number 5. Right. And so we're in a video conferencing world a lot more now, right, than we used to be. But the main thing is the same advice, to be engaged, just like if you were in a room with a client. Like, you wouldn't, we said it, you shouldn't. We've said it a bunch of times. When you're in a room with a client, don't disengage and play on your phone and all that. But, like, doubly true on a video conference call. And if you keep that in mind as your number one thing, all the other things will probably be okay. So, certainly there's lots of advice on the internet about attire on a video call and all those kinds of things. I believe if you're just engaged, it will probably be a successful meeting. You don't want to come in a bathrobe, but, well, I don't know. Maybe you do. That seems like kind of your jam, but
leopard print, red velvet, smoking jacket.
Yeah, smoking jacket.
Yeah,
but you can probably get away with quite a bit on all those kinds of things if you just are super engaged in the meeting as an account manager. You came up with a really great analogy around this, which is kind of about how actors think about themselves.
Yeah.
That they don't like to watch themselves in their movie because it disengages them from the art of acting, right? And so we tell people, turn off your self view on your video conferencing software so that you're totally engaged on the other person, right? And this is your point. Like, actors don't like to watch themselves because it makes them worse actors.
Yeah, it makes them think about things that are all the wrong things that make them successful.
Right.
And yeah, that analogy came to me because it just is super real. Like, it's just something that makes sense. I know that every time I'm on a video conference, when you start talking and you look up and you look at yourself in the picture, you're like, oh, where am I looking? I'm not looking to the right place. So let me look right.
Yeah, my hair looks funny.
My hair looks funny. Like, when those things are flying through your mind, those are squirrels, right? That's the distraction. And then you lose that presence.
Those are squirrels? Is that what you said?
Yeah. I chase a lot of them too, but that's what those things are. And so that's where I think that is probably a fairly healthy analogy of, like, when people say you'll hear people talk about an actor will make a statement in an interview of, like, I never watch my own movies, and everybody like, what? How do you?
That seems weird, right? Why wouldn't you? Like, if because as if you're not a famous actor, like, you think to yourself, oh, go see me in a movie, like, that'd be awesome. No, that's a terrible idea.
Yeah, no, that's right. Because then you think, oh, well, when I turn my head to the left, this doesn't look fun. Yeah. And so I'm not going to turn my head to the left anymore.
Right. You're in your own head.
Think about all the wrong things. So yeah, I think it's a decent analogy to kind of throw around from time to time to make people think about it just a little bit differently.
Not that we're suggesting account management is an act.
No.
Maybe sometimes a little bit.
Oh, look, you're at, like, when somebody's, got the flamethrower out and they're they're about something. Yeah. You're acting, you're dancing, you're bullfighting,
you're pretending to be keeping a neutral face. Right. Yeah. So it can be a little bit of acting. Yeah.
Hey, but bubbling underneath.
Right. Yeah. You're not showing your true. Well, that's actually a good point about this also, like when you're doing video conferencing, right? So same thing you would do in an in-person meeting, controlling your body language and expressions. You do the same thing at a video conference you would do in real life. And also the other thing you do, the same thing you would do is in real life is, and this is especially important where people can't get together in person as much, is kick the conversation off with, as you point out, not only asking them about, what's on their mind or on their agenda, but even starting ahead of that, with kind of some small talk in the beginning, ask them about themselves, ask them how they're doing. And we've talked about that kind of in depth before, about get a little bit personal in the beginning of the meeting, just to, establish that human connection. And you can do that over video conference, and it's perfectly fine. And you should do it.
I will say most days I'm very busy, and my meetings run back to back to back to back.
Mm-hmm.
And so I struggle with the thing that drives me absolutely insane, which is being late to meetings. And when people are late to meetings, I'm like, right? But when you have time, log in 2 minutes early.
Yeah.
When you have time, and you just have that window, log in 2 minutes early. And I promise you, somebody will show up a minute early as well. And if they come, hey, how are you? And they come on camera, they want to engage, and it's great, right, man. Did you go to the ball game last week? Or how about those Saints, or whatever it is, right? Whatever that is, that is a critical moment right there. You also have to read that moment, because some people they go, okay, well, I'm going to log on here so that I'm in the meeting when it starts. But what I'm going to do is go over here and finish an email.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you go, hey, how are you? If they go, hey, good, I'll be with you in just a minute. Not the time to chat them up.
Yeah, that's okay. Right. But you're at least making the attempt. And if somebody's open to it. So again, it goes back to video conferencing. Do the same things you would do if you were in person, and be present. And that's the number one thing. The fact that, the background in your call is the junk in your, living room. That's probably, try to control that as best you can, or, your dog runs around. That's probably okay versus not being present and not being engaged. Right. That's the much worse sin.
Yeah. Now it's, I got to say, this is absolutely hilarious. One of the things that you talked about was sort of that body language and the physical thing and all that good stuff. And I think that's a really, really important point. I was in a very large meeting. It was an internal meeting. It's and it's a pretty casual meeting, and we give each other a hard time, and we update with what's going on. And so it's a really good meeting. And something was happening, and I was making a joke, and the meeting was ending, and I have this silly stand up, sit down desk. And as the meeting was ending, I actually did what I would physically do if I were in a meeting, which is, you push your chair back and you stand up and grab your stuff. And so I was going through that process. But what happens when you do that on a video conference is the camera ends up in all kinds of weird places.
Yeah.
And I swear to you, everybody slacked me immediately after the meeting, and they're like, that was really weird and awkward. And I was like, oh my gosh. So be aware of what things look like on camera. And so they Well, right? You probably got teased about it, but to your point, if it was a good meeting because you were engaged and the rest of the team was engaged, that's what people really remember, right? So a little silliness happened and nobody died, right? So everything's okay, but you can try to avoid it where you control what you can is what I always say. Like, life intrudes, particularly if you work from home and you're doing those kinds of things. So those are human moments. So, all right. So we have prepared, we're prepared even when they don't ask us to. We mastered the technology. We have presence. We know how our presence, and we know how to manage the sort of video conferencing element of this. The meeting is a smashing success. What do we do afterwards? After the meeting, a couple of really key, the meeting was awesome because you did all these things. And so there's a couple of key points. After the meeting, when is it safe, Fred, to talk about the client? In the elevator on the way down? No, in the room. Right in front of them. Yeah. I mean, trust and transparency, John. Is it in the cab ride on the way back to the airport? No. Is it in front of a bunch of other people on the plane, or in the lobby of the airport, or in front? Yeah. No, it is safe when you are back in your office. It is safe when you are in a truly safe environment. So that doesn't mean like if you get on the plane and you fly home and going into a crowded bar for whatever and to recap the conversation, you need to do this in a place where you know that the only listeners will be those that the conversation is intended for. Right. Like I've heard way too many stories of things. I'll tell you, here's a good one for me. I worked for an organization. I did some work for the CEO. And so, like we had a pretty casual relationship when we saw each other around the office or whatever. And we get on the elevator and there's a third person on the elevator. I don't know who it is, but I know that the board is in town. And I look at the CEO and I say, how are the board meetings going? Mm-hmm. Then he says, they're going wonderful. I'd like you to meet Steve thus and such, who is on the board and over this committee. Mm-hmm. He's like, oh, hey, Steve, how are you? Like,
yeah,
it could have been
segue into, hey, this isn't a conversation I want to have right here in this elevator with this third person who, by the way, happens to be involved, right?
And thank heavens I didn't start with, so is the board really kicking your ass today?
Like, yeah. Great answer by this. Oh, they're going wonderfully. By the way, let me introduce you to Brad.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah.
Elevator. I actually have a hard and fast rule. Even the cab driver or Uber driver, no. You don't know who they know. You never know. I mean, I know that seems like a crazy level of security, but like I just do not want to have a conversation about the client. Not that I'm going to say anything bad about the client, right? We've talked many times about like if you kind of overly focus on that, you're going to be worse in terms of your relationship with them, even if they are kind of a pain to deal with. But even good things, like just anything at all, like you just know how it might be interpreted, and so just don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it. Don't do it. Get yourself look, if it's a worthwhile meeting and conversation, then don't just trust that you can share it with somebody verbally and then it lives on, because within any short amount of time you can move on, somebody could move on, and you want to capture all that in writing, right?
Yep. No question about it. And then the other things after the meeting is, have obviously you want to recap for the internal team what they need to do. It's kind of the outcomes of the meeting. Don't sugarcoat the meeting, right? So if it was, not that you would do this, but if the meeting didn't go well, you need to come back and brief your team and, tell them the truth about it didn't go well. And here's why. The other thing, would be along with that, if it really didn't go well, consider an after action review, which is a little bit of an Army term for, whenever they do an engagement or like a practice exercise afterwards, they'll do an exercise where they kind of go through what happened, why it happened, and what can be done better in the future. Now, you might have to have a high degree of trust with your teammates in order to kind of initiate something like that, particularly if you're working with a team where kind of they were the ones who messed up and you're the account manager and you're the business leader and you have to kind of walk them through. But if you do it in the spirit of really, we do want to be better in the future and consider this kind of process improvement, those can be helpful. So consider an after action review. And then obviously finally, if your company does this, and most companies do now, any notes from the meeting, important things, you want to enter that into your CRM system.
Yeah. The after action review is always pretty interesting, because when things don't go well, the folks that are responsible most of the time don't even need to be told.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
this is part of the judgment of an account manager. Like, you need to know, and this is what you were paid for in terms of your business judgment, right? So if the client, in a situation where the client is unhappy about something, then you can do something about it, and you should. Then you do need to tell the team. But if it's something that they don't control, or is beyond them to affect, maybe it wouldn't be worth to kind of just share broadly the sort of laments of your client, right? So that's part of your judgment as an account manager.
Yeah. I tell you, these are things, and like we said at the kind of the top of the episode, there's no shortage of things that could be added to this list, and fortunately or unfortunately, we just haven't learned some of those lessons.
I'm sure there's always more lessons to be learned.
Yeah. But I think this is a great summary of, like, if you focus on these 6 things, I promise that your outcome will be better.
Yeah.
Right. I promise that your outcome will be aligned, and you will have a framework that will require some tweaking based on the client, based on the meeting, and things of that nature. But this framework will put you on the right path. And that,
even if the client is upset about something that you can't easily solve, at least if you do all these things, they will know that you care.
These 6 things, John, what are they?
All right, let's mention them one final time. So number 1, prepare. Number 2, prepare something even if they ask you not to prepare anything. That's a little bit of a warning flag. Number 3, so important, assume the technology will not work. Really important. Number 4, have presence. And number 5, if you're video conferencing, act like you are in the room and have presence like you are in the room. So important these days. And then number 6, after the meeting, do your after the meeting routine, which are things like have a debrief, don't sugarcoat it, enter into CRM, consider an after action review, and don't talk about the client until you are a way far away from the client.
And anybody who might know the client.
And anyone who might know.
Those folks are the secrets to successful meetings.
That's right. The secrets.
Well, John, it's good to be back at it, man. It's good to talk to you again and get the microphones out. I've enjoyed this.
I have too. It's always a pleasure to have a chat with you.
So for John Brown, I'm Fred Fuller. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Account Management, a tactical guide for success. See you next time.
Fred and John would like to hear from you. Go to brown-fuller.com with comments and questions, and rate us on your favorite podcast platform.